In the TOEFL IBT listening section, it's important to understand that conversation passages questions are not simply testing your vocabulary. Instead, they're designed to evaluate how well you understand the speaker's purpose, the problem's solution structure, the speaker's attitude, and key details within the conversation. Let's go through 7 essential strategies that will help you handle these conversation questions effectively. First, identify the main purpose of the conversation. In most cases, the very first question asks about why the student initiated the conversation. To answer this correctly, you should focus carefully on the first 15 to 20 seconds of the audio. This is where the student usually explains the reason for coming. For example, imagine a student says, "Hi, Professor. I'm having trouble understanding the statistics assignment from last week." Right away, you can identify the purpose. The student needs help with a homework assignment. So if the question asks why the student speaks with the professor, the correct answer would be to discuss a homework problem. Second, identify the student's problem. Almost every TOEFL conversation includes a clear problem that the student is facing. As you listen, ask yourself, what is the student's difficulty? Common issues include things like a missed assignment, a schedule conflict, a full class, or even a problem with a student ID. For instance, if a student says, "I tried to enroll in your biology class, but the system says the class is already full," the key problem is obvious. The class is full. Third, follow the problem-to-solution pattern. Most TOEFL conversations follow a very predictable structure: problem, explanation, and solution. So while listening, continuously track these 3 elements. What is the problem? How is it explained? And what solution is offered? For example, if a student says, "I missed the deadline for the research paper," and the professor responds, "If you submit it tomorrow morning, I'll accept it with a small penalty," then the solution is clear: submit the paper tomorrow. Fourth, understand indirect meaning. In many cases, especially in recent TOEFL exams, speakers do not give direct answers. Instead, they imply their meaning. So if a speaker avoids saying no directly and gives a related explanation, you need to interpret the real meaning behind the words. For example, if a student asks, "Can I turn in the project next week?" and the professor replies, "The grades must be submitted tomorrow," the professor is indirectly saying that next week is too late. So the correct interpretation is, the student must submit it tomorrow. Fifth, pay attention to attitude and tone. Some questions will ask you about how the speaker feels. In these cases, tone is extremely important. Certain expressions give you strong clues. For example, words like "that's great" indicate something positive, while "unfortunately" signals bad news. Phrases like "I'm afraid" often introduce a polite refusal, and "well" can show hesitation. So if a librarian says, "Unfortunately, that book has already been checked out," you should immediately understand that the book is not available. Sixth, listen for key details. Not all questions are about big ideas. Some focus on specific factual details. These often include information about location, time, procedures, or requirements. So you should pay close attention to numbers, places, and names. For example, if you hear, "The tutoring center is located on the 2nd floor of the library and opens at 9 a.m., and the question asks where it is located, the correct answer is clearly the 2nd floor. Finally, notice signal words. Speakers often use signal words to highlight important information, and these words can guide you to the correct answer. For instance, "actually" often introduces a correction, "but" or "however" signals contrast, "so" shows a result, and "because" gives a reason. For example, if a student says, "I thought the report was due Friday," and the professor responds, "Actually, the deadline is Thursday," the word "actually" tells you that the correct information is Thursday. To summarize, success in TOEFL listening conversations comes from actively tracking purpose, identifying problems, following solutions, understanding indirect meaning, recognizing tone, catching key details, and paying attention to signal words. If you practice listening with these strategies in mind, you will not only understand the conversations better, you will also answer the questions with much greater accuracy.